Hello, subscribers and non-subscribers, and welcome to, well, Battlefield 4. Fairly recently, after the Battlefield 1 beta, I enjoyed that beta, actually, so I said, you know what, I haven't played Battlefield 4 in, like, a year, or actually, more than that. I think I stopped playing the game roughly after the first map pack came out. So, yeah, it's been quite a while since I had played it, and EA had basically given away all of the map packs that were released for Battlefield 4, and so I said, you know what, screw it. I'll go ahead and check out the game again. And overall, I enjoyed it. Of course, all the footage that I recorded is on Operation Locker because, well, frankly, I kind of prefer infantry-focused maps a lot more than vehicle-focused maps. At least when I'm trying to get back into playing a game that I haven't played in forever. And so yeah, I decided to stick with this. I could not find really any of the Operation Metro ones, so yeah. Ended up just needing to go with Operation Locker maps. Nonetheless, as I said, I did actually kind of enjoy so far what I've played of the game. But I don't really have too much to talk about necessarily here. In fact, the main thing that I wanted to talk about was the system requirements that were revealed recently for Battlefield 1 and the maps as well as the game modes. So the system requirements, for the minimum, 64-bit Windows. They list specifically either 7, 8.1, or 10, but yeah, basically just any 64-bit Windows that is capable of doing DirectX 11. That's the important thing. XP, to my knowledge, I think caps out at 9, and I think Vista caps at 10, so essentially, yeah, you're kind of forced with at least Windows 7, which is what I imagine most people are running, or at least the majority of people that be buying this game anyway. The processor for AMD is an FX 6350, and for Intel is an i5 6600K. Of course, you got some people saying, why are they saying the minimum spec is an Intel i5 6600K when I was able to run it perfectly fine with my i3 Skylake? Because while you might be able to run it, EA would kind of like to have leeway on the off chance the game performs like crap on your system. And so they're going to go and recommend something better than what you probably have, so that when you buy the game and you complain about it performing bad, they can say, well, you don't have at least the minimum CPU that we said you should have. And so, yeah. People forever don't realize that. There's a reason most games tend to recommend higher specs than what is actually required. It gives the developers and publishers leeway on the off chance the game performs like crap on your system, when in theory it should run fine for the most part. They also recommend at least 8 gigs for the minimum specs, a Radeon HD 7850 with 2 gigs, or an NVIDIA GTX 660 with 2 gigs, and 50 gigs of hard drive space. This is actually the main reason why I upgraded my gaming my storage hard drive recently to a 3 terabyte, because yeah, these games taking up 50 gigs, they fill up 1 terabyte fairly quickly, especially when you have a ton of other applications and stuff running off that same hard drive. That's their minimum specs. The recommended specs are an FX 8350 with at least the Wraith cooler, which is the new cooler that AMD CPUs come with. Of course, in reality, most people that are going to be playing the game on PC probably aren't using a stock cooler. They're using an aftermarket one that they bought from, say, Cooler Master or some other company. And so really they could just say 8350, but for whatever reason they felt like specifying with the Wraith cooler. The Intel recommended CPU is an i7 4790 or equivalent. 16 gigs of RAM. The AMD GPU they recommend is an RX 480 with 4 gigabytes, which that'll run you, I think, about $230 or so for a board partner version. And depending on where you buy it from and obviously where you live as well. But yeah, I think it's roughly about $230 or so for those. Or a NVIDIA GTX 1060 with 3 gigabytes of video RAM. Honestly, for the most part, I don't actually think these specs are asking too much, since in the case of the minimum, yes, you can run the game with slightly subpar from what they're listing as the minimum specs, especially for the Intel CPU. The AMD one, it's probably not advised to run with something less than a 6350. But for the Intel, yeah, in reality, yes, you can run it with like a Haswell i5 probably, with no real issues. And in theory, basically, as long as you have at least 2 gigabytes of VRAM on your graphics card, you should be fine. Of course, with AMD, since they dropped support for non-GCN video cards, you're going to need at least a GCN-based video card, probably to launch the game, because the beta had problems for those people that are running HD 6000 series and whatnot, with the game not launching because it was telling them they were using out-of-date drivers, but then when they went to update the drivers, it said they were using the latest version, and that's because they were using the latest version that AMD released for non-GCN cards, which I believe AMD started using GCN with the I want to say like 7700 series, maybe the 7800, I'm not 100% sure. I know it's one of the 7000s, but I don't remember exactly which series in the 7000 series that started using GCN, but I think it was either like the 7700s or 7800s. But yeah, honestly, I think those specs are pretty decent, really. Especially if you were to compare them to some other games, for example. I mean, let's see. I'll pull up Deus Ex because it's a somewhat recent title. Wait for it to load. Let's see. So Deus Ex is recommending much lower CPU. Their minimum is an i3 2100. But the graphics cards are basically the same. So it's the CPU that changed there. Of course, there are other games you could compare it to if you wanted to. I mean, hell, you could take a look at Fallout even. Obviously not the same engine, but you could look at Fallout. Fallout recommends an i5 2300 as the Intel for the minimum specs. And yet again, the graphics cards are kind of similar with Battlefield 1. But in reality, probably so long as you are able to run Battlefield 4 or Hardline or Star Wars Battlefront with decent frame rates, you'll probably be able to run Battlefield 1 perfectly fine. Push come to shove, you may have to lower the graphics a little, but for the most part, you should be fine. And give me 1 second. Okay, sorry about that. I heard the mail arriving, and I'm expecting a package today, and I know that sometimes they like to come up and ring the doorbell, other times they don't. So I figured I'd pause the recording on the off chance they decided to come up and ring the doorbell. But yeah, so next thing, they also announced the maps and game modes recently. So the maps we got are Ballroom Blitz, which apparently is supposed to take place in a French chateau. Got the Argonne Forest, which is supposed to, according to the info here, allow for some of the most brutal close-quarter combat the game has to offer. I want to say probably not, because you're fighting in a forest. Close-quarters combat is probably going to be something like Foul Fortress, which is the home of the Ottomans, as their description says here. That's probably going to be a lot more in way of close combats because, well, it's a fortress, and, well, if you're fighting inside the fortress itself, in any hallways and whatnot, then yes, you'll be getting a lot of close quarters combat. I don't think close quarters combat when I think forests, for the most part. You got the Suez, which it'll be interesting how that one's going to work out. Yeah, I'm not sure. Were there really any big battles in the Suez? And actually, I'm somewhat expecting them to probably just take the Suez from Battlefield 4, probably make it look a little older, and call it a job well done, because there was a mission in the Battlefield 4 campaign that's supposed to be taking place in the area sort of around the Suez Canal. So yeah, if anything, I wouldn't be surprised if they just say, yep, take that map, or that campaign mission, and make it look older. So yeah, that's probably going to be the way that works. I got the St. Quentin Scar, which I think was the map used in the alpha, which I did not participate in anyway, which is fine, because I would rather not have played the alpha. I probably gotten burned out if I had. But yeah, so like I said, I think that was the alpha map, and I think that's also what we saw when they were doing their Battlefield Squads thing at, what was it, around the time of E3 or something. We got Sinai Desert, which was the map for the beta. We got Amiens, which is a French city. We got Montegrappa, which is in the Venetian Alps, so I'm guessing Italy is probably its own faction, or its own nation in the game. Which, actually, I'm a little bit surprised by. Though I don't know who they'd be fighting. I'm not sure if they'd be fighting the Germans or the Austro-Hungarians. I would think, in theory, they'd be fighting the Austro-Hungarians, but knowing EA, they'd have been too lazy to put the Austro-Hungarians in as their own faction, so you're probably fighting the Germans. And then we got Empire's Edge, which is fighting around the Adriatic coast, which... Well, considering that one of the bomber loadouts is a naval bomber, it's got a torpedo, I think it's safe to say that's going to have battleships. The question's going to be whether or not those... Well, the battleship is probably going to be treated like the behemoths. So, yeah, that's not going to do too much, really. It'll probably be interesting, but I get the feeling it'll probably wear out after quite a while. Then we got the game modes. Conquest, which is kind of my game mode of choice for the most part. We got Domination, which I think is just smaller conquest on a section of the map. We got Operations, which from the sounds of it is kind of like Rush, but maybe rather than needing to blow up MCOM is like you're taking trenches or something along those lines. When I read their description of it, that's kind of what it came across as to me. In fact, actually, let's see. So, go ahead and actually pull up the description for you guys. So, let's see. Read it real quick. Yeah, reading the description, it kind of comes across as you're needing to take sectors of the map, kind of like Rush. But I wouldn't be surprised if these sectors are probably trenches and things of that nature. Because, okay, so it says Operations Offense. As an attacker, you'll hear the commanding officer's whistle as the order to charge the enemy is given. You run side by side with your teammates as you storm the enemy defensive positions on foot, in tanks, airplanes, boats, and on horseback. The attackers will win the operation if they manage to capture the very last sector in the very last map. The attackers must capture and hold all defensive positions in order to capture the sector that is being fought over. Once this is done, the defenders will fall back to the next sector and regroup. Pacing and variety between the different sectors vary wildly, since each sector offers a different amount of objectives to capture and defend, as well as varied layouts and choke points. I'm going to definitely give this mode a try. And if I enjoy it more than Conquest and it has a decent player base, I'll probably be picking it as my go-to game mode for Battlefield 1. We got Rush, which is the standard Rush, really no different there. We got Team Deathmatch, which is, well, Team Deathmatch. And then we got War Pigeons, which to me kind of sounds like a one flag, capture the flag. So there's essentially a neutral flag somewhere on the map, and both teams are fighting over it. Once one team grabs it, brings it back to their base, they get 1 point, and the map or the flag will spawn again somewhere else on the map. And rinse and repeat until one team takes the number of flags that are necessary to win, or the timer runs out, and then the team with the most captures wins. That's what it comes across as to me at least. is essentially just one flag, capture the flag. And again, I'll probably give the game mode a try. But I'm thinking Conquest or Operations is probably going to be my go-to game modes, especially if Operations has a decent player base. So, yeah. Honestly, I think the maps and game modes could be interesting. We'll see how it works out on October 21st, and I'm actually probably going to pre-order the game about a week before launch. I'm not sure which edition I'm going to go with, but yeah, as I said, I'm probably going to end up pre-ordering the game about a week before launch, because I did enjoy the beta. I do feel as though the Operations game mode could be interesting. And while I do enjoy Battlefield, I think the main reason why I stopped playing Battlefield 4 was just because I had played so much of the beta before launch that I had gotten kind of burned out on the game for the most part. So, yeah. That is it for this video. I do have a number of other recordings for Battlefield 4 here that I'll be tossing up throughout the next couple weeks, probably pretty much up until launch of Battlefield 1. And, you know, one thing I do want to go mention before I finish this off, you'll notice in some of these recordings, in fact, I think you might have seen it in this one, and probably in some, you definitely will see it in some of the later Battlefield 4 footage that I'll be uploading, like I said, over the next couple of weeks, pretty much up until the launch of Battlefield 1. You'll see, I noticed that on this map, people don't tend to really pay attention to their surroundings. Because there's a number of times where I managed to take the lower level on this map to come up behind the enemy, and generally speaking managed to kill like 4 or 5 people before any of them turn around and realize, oh wait, we're being shot in the back. Because, yeah, I guess just for some reason people don't pay attention to their surroundings at all in this game, or at least on this map. But yeah, so that's gonna, well, actually, you know what, screw it. There's one other thing I want to mention. Ah, never mind. I'll wait till the next channel update that I do to mention it. Yeah, so that's going to be it for this video. As always, like, favorite, comment, subscribe, share, and I'll see you guys next time. And I will probably try to record some actual live commentary here at Battlefield 4 in the near future. Because, well, it's probably a little bit more interesting than basically having no audio except for the game. But until the next video, which I'll probably throw up like next week or something, that is going to be it. Goodbye and farewell.
Enemy machine gunner east of your location.
Оборонять
Be
эту
advised,
цель!
objective Delta has been lost. Be advised,
Атакуйте эту
we
цель!
now control objective Charlie.
Fix yourself up for that med kit!
Patch yourself up with this medkit!
We just neutralized objective